to the Bridge the Gap podcast. Here's your host, Dustin Udke.
Hey, welcome into Bridge the Gap. We got a special bonus episode for you guys this week. You guys know that we're all about conversations here, and I'm excited to sit down with a up-and-coming prospect, have a conversation about where he came from, where he's at, and where he's going. So what we got for you this week is Max Brosmer, quarterback from Minnesota, headed to the East-West Shrine Bowl next week. Max, how's it going today?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Let's talk about your journey. Where did sports come from in your life? Like, what's your earliest memory of sports, and where did you fall in love with sports, especially football?
Yeah, it started when I was younger. Both my parents went to Ohio State, and we grew up going to Ohio State games. And my earliest memory of football was throwing the football in the grass outside the stadium at a tailgate with my family, and then going to the game after and watching Ohio State play. And that's something that I still can remember to this day. It's pretty ingrained in my memory, and I think that it really shows that football is synonymous to family to me. And it just continued from there. I got to play high school football in one of the the powerhouse states of the country in Georgia, and it kind of grew from when I was a little kid watching Ohio State play.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, so I'm assuming you're rooting for Ohio State in the national championship. I know it's a little difficult now that you're a player and you went to Minnesota, but I'm assuming the Big Ten roots are still strong with you.
It is, yes. And I actually have, I think 6 or 7 people upstairs that are traveling down from Ohio so they can come watch the game in Atlanta. So I get to see my family, and most of them are going to the game tomorrow. So I think it's pretty ingrained that I have to be an Ohio State fan this weekend or tomorrow.
That's awesome. So let's talk about it. You're in Georgia. You kind of went to high school there. You said you moved around. What's it like being a Southern boy in Georgia, all of a sudden going to college in New Hampshire and then to Minnesota with the weather and the difference of culture? What's that like? What's that transition like for you?
Yeah, the first thing that's always brought up is how cold it is up there. And I didn't even know New Hampshire had a football team until I got recruited out of nowhere, to be honest. And my first week there, I was still rehabbing from an injury, and I was on crutches. And it was like negative 20 degrees or something crazy for like a whole week. And I'm like, Mom, I can't go to school here. There's no way that I can play football in this weather. And then I experienced it in spring ball that year because I was able to play in spring ball. And the best part about New Hampshire, it describes it to a T, is we don't have an indoor, obviously. And they plow the fields up to the fence and up to the gate so it makes like a 10 foot like mound of snow and ice. And so in order to climb to spring ball, you have to get over the mound of snow and ice for like 5:45 in the morning practice with winds howling. And you're doubled up on sweatshirts and doubled up on sweatpants trying to play football in that weather and, catching balls into a snowbank. It's a crazy transition when you talk about weather, but when you talk about culture too, there's a difference in culture too. There's a Boston culture up in New Hampshire, and there's a Midwestern feel, and obviously in Minnesota, which is completely different from Georgia. So it's been a cool journey so far, experiencing that, meeting new people, and playing football in different environments.
Yeah, I live in Wisconsin. I'm from Philadelphia, so I get the total like East Coast, upper East Coast kind of thing, Mid Atlantic, and then coming to the West Coast, and that different culture, but also the weather is insane. I mean, the second winter I moved here, my wife was hanging blankets over the window. She's like, "Any draft will kill you," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's like negative 50. It's just not great." But let's talk about New Hampshire because we interviewed Dylan Lobby last year. So he was drafted from New Hampshire, a teammate of yours. You're projected to be a draft pick, which I believe in you will be a draft pick. What do people, scouts, GMs, front office people, fans, what do they need to know about small school players? Because I think they often get overlooked and get a stigma because they played in a small school. What do they need to know about these small school players?
I think the first thing is the love of the game is very eminent, as well as the grittiness of football. I think the number one thing, the difference between like the FBS Power 5 level and like FCS is mainly just resources. I mean, the amount of money that are coming into these programs is absolutely incredible. And it shows you, like at New Hampshire, we got like one pair of cleats for a year, and I wore the same pair of cleats for like 2 years. And we got one sweatshirt in like 3 years there. And I got, like 20 sweatshirts in Minnesota, like right away in 3 months. And I'm like, dang, this is crazy. At New Hampshire, when I talk about resources, there's no indoor like I talked about. The weight rooms are a little smaller. There's not as many things that you can do to heal your body or recover effectively. Like at Minnesota, we have a recovery suite In New Hampshire, me and Dylan would go out of our way, out of the building to go find somewhere to get some different recovery. Um, it's very interesting, the dynamic between the two, levels of football. And people are always like, I want to go watch Power 5 football and watch them dominate. But I feel like there's a lot of people that don't love playing football at high levels. When you get to the FCS, all you have is football. I mean, that's literally all there is football and your team. And so I would, going back, I would never have chosen anything different. New Hampshire was perfect for me and my family, and I think a lot of people miss out on that sometimes.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think small schools, you guys get that love of the game. You're right. You don't have the resources. You guys have to be creative, and you have to have the passion, especially when you're playing in cold temperatures, or you don't have the recovery suite or all these bells and whistles that you get in a Big Ten or an SEC school. Because I've interviewed players at the combine and the draft over the past 2 years, and they just don't seem to love football. They know they're good at it. They know they can be successful. They know they can make a living at it and make money for their family, but they don't seem to love the game. And I think that's why we see some of these diva wide receivers in the past. And I think we're getting a shift out of that. So when you have guys like Mike Evans who have played their whole career on one team, it shows that they love football. They love the community and family. I know that's a big thing for you is this, sense of family that is football. So let's talk about your last year in New Hampshire. You had the option to stay or transfer in the transporter. You decided to transfer to Minnesota. What led to that decision?
Yeah, I didn't really want to transfer. I wanted to stay and finish my career there. I made a home in New Hampshire and I made a family there, and that wasn't something that I wanted to do. But my ultimate goal, we always talked about, reverse tracking of what your goal is. And my goal was playing in the NFL for as long as possible, and whatever that looks like, that's my goal. And in order to do that, I had to grow in ways that maybe I didn't visualize or see myself having to grow in those ways. And so I felt like I was getting comfortable in New Hampshire, where I wasn't going to be able to grow and challenge myself and change my best, really. And so I entered the portal with the support of my teammates and my coaches. That's something that was really important to me. I came to them with questions like, "Hey, what should I do? Like, you guys know my goals. You guys know who I am. Like, what should I do?" And they were very, very supportive. And I found a home at Minnesota pretty quickly. And from the gate, like day one, I felt like I was in deep water for a second. Like I'm challenging myself like from the gate, or from the get go. And as frustrating as challenging it was on a daily basis starting in January, I knew that was the right thing for me to become a better player.
Yeah, let's talk about that difference between New Hampshire and Minnesota. Obviously, you have this, great family, and you had, teammates that you had built 4 years with, and you went to Minnesota. So, what really was the big difference going from New Hampshire to Minnesota?
So I think the culture shock between the two is different. So New Hampshire is, Bostonian culture.
Mhm.
It's like they're I would say it's more aggressive than you get to the Midwest, and it's just a little easier going. I would say there's a lot of passive aggressiveness up in Boston.
Yes.
Don't drive poorly because you'll get told pretty quickly. And then when you get to Minnesota, it's the culture that we create in our facility is very unique in itself, obviously, but then the culture in the state is so welcoming. So that was an easy transition for me and my family going to Minnesota. It reminded me of Ohio a little bit, of the welcoming kind of Midwestern feel. And then you get in the facility, the uniqueness of what Coach Fleck has created there, not only in Minnesota, but also Western Michigan, and any player who's ever played for him anywhere. It's a life program. It's not just football. And that's what gravitated me towards Minnesota, was the fact that it didn't feel as businessy as some of the other Power 5 programs that I was looking into. And that's why I chose Minnesota. It just felt right.
I think that's good. When you talked about this reverse tracking, which I think is a great thing for people to learn, is figure out where you want to go and what steps you need to get there and figure out where you are. And I think going to a school like Minnesota, where it is a life program, not a football program, right? It's someone that's going to equip you for life. And if football is where you want to be in life, like they're going to help you get there.
Right.
Obviously, in Minnesota, you had some options. You got some NIL money, and I heard a reporter, I think what you're talking about, spending some of your NIL money to bring skill position players down to Atlanta for practice, and you sent your O line to a national camp on your own dime. Why was that important to you? Like, talk us through that process, because that's very selfless. That's very something we don't hear about a lot today. That I'm sure the NIL deal wasn't crazy. We talk, we hear these big numbers for these, like, the Quinn Ewers and those guys. And I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure it was good money, not great money, but to take the option and go, hey, this is money I could save, but it's better off for me to bring some players down to me to train and send my O-lines to a camp where they can get better. What was behind that decision?
Yeah, I mean the money situation at Minnesota. I also the reason I talked about the businessy feel. Like our first conversation was not like, hey, this is what we're gonna pay you. Like it was all like, hey, what are your goals? What kind of person are you? They're trying to get to know you as a person, as a human being, as a football player. And it's not about the money there. And so like there wasn't a huge collective program when I got there. So that wasn't why I went there. But when you talk about the fact that you do get some money from the collective and you can use it on your teammates in a positive way, that was so cool for me. Like I brought the receivers and tight ends down from New Hampshire the year before and housed them in my house for a week, and that was awesome. It was an incredible experience, and my family there. I mean, they're saints for dealing with my teammates for a week, and then I got to Minnesota. I'm like, this is a great opportunity for me. I get to use a week in the off season to bring my guys down who I don't even know that well. Find ways off the field to create the bonding and relationships that are needed for success on the field this season. And so I was able to fund everything, flights, where they're staying. They all stayed in my house, which was crazy. Food, events, I took them to a Braves game and I got them all customized Braves jerseys.
Oh, nice.
And we did, on the field training. We did gym work. It was a whole week of football, but also a lot more of the off the field stuff where you're getting to know each other on a personal level as opposed to football level. And then the O-line camp thing was pretty cool too. That was a opportunity that was kind of presented itself later. And I sent the guys down to Dallas for a few days to, get off the field as well and spend some time together outside of the facility and create, bonding opportunities for those guys outside the facility.
I think that's awesome. I think it says a lot about your leadership style and you as a teammate. And I think that's something that the NFL is going to be looking for because, we hear the stories of Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp having breakfast or you guys training, but we don't hear a lot of this like, we hear it of, Saquon Barkley bought his lineman this for, getting him 2,000 yards. But I think you're just doing it just for the sake of doing it and bonding outside of the football field, which is why I have this podcast to kind of get beyond the field and talk about that. So let's talk about this because I heard you guys have you have dinners every week in Minnesota.
Yes.
Friday nights, I believe it was. And the one rule was no football.
No football.
And so what made is that the same bond? Like you just want to set up time outside of the game to bond and create those bonds outside of the game?
Yeah, so we did dinner every night at Free House in North Loop in Minneapolis every Thursday night. And the rule that I had was like, hey guys, we're not going to talk about football. And it's because the only time that we hang out really throughout the week is at the facility during practice, during lifts, during meetings, and we're talking about is football. So, the reason that we're going to dinner is, to have it together as a unit, but also as a way to get away from football and take a break for a second because it is real where people, we do so much football on a daily basis that it can get tiring and it can get exhausting. And getting away for those 2 hours and then going to watch the Thursday night game, like that's awesome. Like it's such a cool experience. And I want to thank Free House for actually providing that opportunity for us. But the guys just bought into it. They love doing it too. We played games, talked about our favorite movies. It was just outside of football.
I think that's huge because when we're talking, in the NFL, they're talking about coaching hires right now, and they're all talking about culture and building culture and being a leader of men. That's where that culture is set. The culture isn't necessarily set on the practice field or in the film room. It's set when you guys are just bonding and teams that get to hang out and do fun things together. It really does show some chemistry, and you inherently play a little tougher and harder for your friends than you do your teammates because they're friends. And I think for you, those are friendships that are going to last for you outside of football, regardless of where you go, where they go. They're going to be friends for life. And I think that really did help your success and help the success of Minnesota. You guys had a good turnaround, won 2 more games you did the year before, went to the Duke Mayo Bowl, which I think was great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's all part of it. And I think it shows a lot about you as a leader, which is something, obviously teams are looking for that in the NFL, you being a leader and going, hey, I'm going to take this above and beyond just on the field in the practice room. Like this is not my job. It's part of my life. And I think that's huge. Let's talk about what's the biggest obstacle you had to face to get to where you are now?
It's a great question. I would say that it's not just one obstacle. I feel like it's a constant obstacle, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I've never been the tallest guy. I've never been the fastest guy or the most agile guy. I've never had the strongest arm. I've always had to work the hardest to get to where I'm at today. That continues. I mean, I'm not the first quarterback taken this year, and by way of hard work, I can earn myself, whatever spot is given to me, and that's just because number one, I love playing football. I love the work. I love the grind. I love being a part of a team, but it's for my passion and love for the game and internal motivation and drive that I love to do it. Like I don't know what else I would do. I just play football and I work for it. I love it. And I think the piece where you're too slow and you're not strong enough. That's just a figment of someone's imagination. That's their opinion. And if you let opinions become physical obstacles, then it can be really challenging setbacks. But I would say it's an everyday thing and, an every season thing.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, they have you listed at 6'2", 225, which is not, you're not Kyler Murray short.
Right.
So, I mean, you're a good average size, which I think is great. I know you tore your ACL a couple years ago. Talk about your process of working through that and how that made you balance work and sports and life and that aspect of that.
Yeah, tearing your ACL or any any injury that's going to put you out for a season is one of the most challenging things I've ever had to go through. And it doesn't seem like a very big, challenge when you look at it from the outside. Like, oh, he just got hurt. He'll be back next season. What I talked about, one of the reasons why I love playing football is being a part of a team, and that's completely thrown to the curb when you're injured.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, completely. You're if you're going to practice, you're sitting on the sideline watching, and if you're going to rehab or treatment, it's by yourself for an hour to 2 hours. You're not doing anything with your team, and it's very lonely when you're injured like that, especially when you go from a position where you're the leader of the team and then you get injured and then you feel like you lost that for a second. And so I would say the injury, number one, intangibly, I think it taught me more about empathy and gratitude for where I'm at, and understanding that if someone's injured, like, the easiest thing to say is, hey, how you doing today, bro? Like, I'm with you, like right here with you. And that meant a lot to me when it happened, when I was injured, but also now it taught me how to do that when people are injured now, because I've been through it. Those setbacks or those, I wouldn't call it failures, but, it's synonymous to failure, failing in football. Like, those are things that allow you to grow and promote success down the line. And I learned things about football too that I wouldn't have learned if I was not injured. Like, I spent basically the entire fall camp and the first half of the season being the O-line GA, basically. Like, I learned everything there was to know about O-line play. And now, like, I don't need anyone in the meetings. I don't need anyone on the field to be like, hey, like, I'm gonna call the run game out. Like, I call everything out. Like, I can call every single combination, no matter what, the front, whatever, everything. All because I was injured for that year. And it puts you on the same page in game and in meetings with your O-line because of that. And there's stuff that you can look at it in a way like, oh, it's a negative thing, but then you look at it in a positive manner of what you can do to grow and fill in those gaps of your shortcomings, I guess, and create a better you at the end of it.
Yeah, you brought up two things that I think most people struggle with, which is empathy and gratitude. And those are huge things to learn. I think you're right. Taking that year and being able to utilize that time you had to learn something different and makes you a better player. Like, yes, it would have been great to be on the field, but you learn more probably being off the field than you would have ever on the field. So
100%.
looking at things and having that gratitude of, like, yes, I got hurt. I'm not grateful I got hurt, but I'm grateful of what I got to learn while I got hurt. I think that's a great perspective that is lost. So you went to Minnesota. You guys had a good year. You went to what is my favorite bowl name, the Duke Mayo Bowl.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because I'm sure it's a different than going to a bowl game. What was it like going to and playing in a bowl game, the Duke's Mayo Bowl?
It was very cool. I mean, that was my first experience playing in a bowl game. I got to visit Minnesota last year when they were in the Quick Lane Bowl in Detroit. So that was very cool. But actually being a part of it is awesome. I mean, they schedule a whole week out for you, basically, events outside of practice. We went into like a NASCAR.
Cool.
They took us around a NASCAR course. That was pretty crazy.
Wow.
Motor Speedway. I got the full experience. Like, my engine blew or whatever, and we like spun out in the grass.
Wow.
like NASCAR style, Ricky Bobby style. That was not planned either, and I'm freaking out. But anyway, the week was awesome. I mean, the the hospitality staff was great. And then getting to the game, it was like, a normal week of preparation just with a few extra events. And playing the actual game was so cool. And playing in the Charlotte stadium there with the Panthers was, I mean, absolutely incredible. You could see the skyline behind the stadium as you were playing. We traveled a lot of Gopher fans, and Virginia Tech also traveled a lot of their fans too. So it was a pretty cool atmosphere. And then seeing Coach Fleck at the end getting dumped with mayonnaise was awesome. I had to make sure he was coming up for a hug after the game, and I'm like, dude, stay away from
No.
until you shower, then we can talk. So it was a lot of fun, and it was one last moment to play together with the older guys, just one last time.
Yeah, and it seems like it'd be more fun since you guys had built all this time of bonding off the field and really built this sense of family there. So I'm sure it was
Right.
extra fun. So what have you been up to since the bowl game? I know you're training. What's your training been look like since bowl game?
Yeah, so I'm down here in Atlanta training with Adapt, the gym that I've been with for 5-ish years now, and then I'm training with Quincy on a daily basis as well. My quarterback coach, been with him since sixth grade. Oh my God, it's been sixth grade. It's crazy. So I mean, I've been with him for a long time. So that's a daily thing. We have a recovery day mixed in there, and then I get one day of kind of rest-ish, and then we're back at it on Sunday again. So it's accommodating to see family, but also since I'm from here, but it's also hard work, and it's just a little bit different. There's extreme rigidity in my schedule at Minnesota, and now it's a little looser in your own draft prep. And the one thing that I noticed the first week was, in the off season, you're training to go back and be the best version of yourself for your team when you get back, because you want to make sure that you're doing everything possible to grow yourself as a person, as a quarterback, when you get back for your team. But right now I don't have a team to go back to. And so it's the weirdest feeling working like for yourself for the first time, and understanding that, eventually you'll have a team, but you don't know where that team is.
Yeah.
And doing everything for yourself, it's just such a weird feeling for me. So I'm getting used to it, but I'm really enjoying the process.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like that love of the game is that there's the motivation is you need to motivate yourself.
Right.
And that reverse tracking you talked about of going, okay, if I want to get to the NFL, this is what I need. This is that step to get there. So you're headed to the East West Shrine Bowl in a week or so. What should people expect to see from you in those weeks of practice in the game? What should they see when they see Max Brosmer on the field?
I think one thing that's been consistent throughout this meeting or this interview has been, my love for the game. It's something that I can't hide. I mean, I love football through and through, and that's something that shines whether I'm on the field or I'm not on the field. I feel like I'm in total command when I'm on the field at all times. That's just kind of how I play the game. I love playing the position of quarterback, not just throwing the football, but I love everything that goes into playing quarterback. That's off the field and on the field, about being a commander and leading people in a positive way and promoting success in a positive way, challenging people in a positive way. I just love doing that. And then just for the Shrine Bowl piece, I'm going to work my butt off, and I hope people understand that I'm there to compete and have fun with everybody, and make sure we're promoting success together.
Yeah, I mean the Shrine Bowl is going to have a little more eyeballs on it this year. Shedeur Sanders is going,
Right.
so probably a little more press than normal. So tell me the two traits. What's the trait that people are going to see quickly that they're going to be like, okay, arm strength, velocity. What's that quick trait that they're going to, okay, that's the first thing they recognize? And what's the one trait you want them to recognize about you?
When you're looking physically speaking, I think, I pride myself on having a really quick release. I get the ball out on time where it needs to be in a relatively quick fashion. I think that I can it's always fun playing a football game. And like a D line's about to sack you, but then you get the ball off and complete it. And they're like, how'd you get the ball out? That's always a really fun moment for me during football games. I hope the one thing that maybe they do see is the maturity piece. I've played the position for so long. I know all the ins and outs of the position. And I love to learn more about it. I love to grow in ways that, challenge me and, eventually promote success. And I just think the maturity piece is really important for a quarterback, and I feel like I emulate that, on a daily basis on the field and off the field.
I think maturity is huge, and I think it gets mixed up a lot of times when we start talking about quarterbacks, especially as they go, "Oh, he's an old quarterback." Michael Penix came out, he's 24, and they're like, "Oh, he's
Sure.
old." It's like, yeah, but he's mature, and we saw it with
Yeah.
Penix when he finally got the time to start. That maturity and experience led him to be successful quicker, whereas some of these younger guys who are maybe struggle a little bit starting off because they don't have the experience and the maturity. So what quarterbacks have you modeled your game after? Like, who would you say is the best comparison for you?
I'm not sure that I can completely compare myself to anyone. I think that there's bits and pieces that you kind of learn from different people along the way. I've recently been studying Aaron Rodgers and his throwing mechanics. I think that video just came out about his throwing mechanics, which was pretty cool. But I had been kind of getting into that with Quincy beforehand. The same thing with Matthew Stafford. They're very similar in the way that their arm slot is. I love watching Jared Goff play football.
Okay.
Love watching him play football. I feel like I can, see myself like in a way that, he plays the game is kind of how I feel like I play the game too, which is cool to see that in an NFL quarterback. But I don't know that I can be like, oh, this is like the guy that I want to be, or, this is the guy that I emulate on a daily basis.
That's fair. So let's get into some quick, kind of fun questions. The one question I like to ask a lot is, Coach lets you call one play. He goes, Max, your play, call whatever you want. What play are you calling and why?
Well, you're going to need to give me a little more. What situation, down and distance, what do we got?
Let's just say
there's a lot of different plays I could rattle off.
Gotta have it, gotta have a first down,
So third
whatever down to, but you gotta have a play to extend the game. What's your play?
Okay, we can go 3rd and 7.
Okay.
And there's always got to be some sort of motion for me on third down, whether it's tight end trades, receivers motions, quick motions to get a man zone indicator, because that's the biggest thing is if you're going to get man or zone, if you're going to have a cover zero pressure, they're going to bluff you pressure. So I would say we'll go, like trade. It'll be trade. Let's go trade to gun trout right, 63 Y saddle. We're in 6-man pro. We have basically what happens is we have number one receiver to the boundary, our X, have a speed out that converts. Third inside step, we have an out route. Our Y, who's trading across the formation to get a man zone indicator. He's got a read route, so he's basically running a pipe route. He's stemming the Mike backer, running vertical to 10 yards. If he's uncapped, he's going to run down the middle of the field if it's too high. If it's one high, he'll break it off and run like an over. And so we have a speed out and an over now. And now our number 2 route is a read alley. So he's got a stutter inside go. If it's zone coverage, which will also help him with the motion indicator, if it's zone coverage, he'll curl it off at 10 to 12 yards. If it's man coverage, he's going to run the inside go. And then the outside Z has a whip route to the field. So second outside, go grab the nickel and then bounce out in zone coverage. And man, he's not grabbing anyone in man. He's going to run his route to win. And so running back is a check down. So man zone indicator, there's zone answers across the whole board, right across the board. If it's man, we have man answers across the board as well. Every single person's a man beater for the most part. I love third down concept with a lot of options and a lot of places to go with the football, where also you can use indicators to help the receivers out and understand, what their responsibility is on that play before the ball is snapped. And that's something that I preach to my receivers a ton is know your plan before the ball is snapped. Otherwise, you're going to be guessing the whole time.
I think that's huge. What I got from you and from this whole interview is that you're there to help them, and having those man indicators helps just you read the defense, helps them read the defense and know which way to go. And you're there about the whole team, and you seem to have this whole like team mentality, which I really like. What's your cheat day meal? If you had your Quincy gives you a cheat day meal, what's it going to be?
Good question. So if I was in Ohio, for example, Skyline chili is my favorite.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've ever had Skyline before, but like
I've had it once, and I'm not my favorite, but it's
that's
okay.
my deathbed meal. Like if I'm going to get executed tomorrow, I'm doing like 12 cheese conies. Like I'm gonna stuff myself full of cheese conies, and that's just something that like I miss so much because I'm from Ohio, and that's just something I grew up eating.
Yeah.
So I would say it's Skyline if I'm in Ohio. If I'm down here, it's probably have to be Zaxby's. And I hate to go between Zaxby's and Chick-fil-A. But I feel like I eat Chick-fil-A so much that probably Zaxby's is. For breakfast, I'm doing Waffle House. I mean, not even close. I'm doing Waffle House.
All right, that's not bad. So let's talk draft. It's draft day. I'm assuming you're going to have some sort of party at your house. What does that look like? Are you having a ton of people? Is it just you and the family? What does the draft day party look like at your house?
I'm not sure that I've quite gotten that far yet, to be honest. I
Okay.
would say I envision it to be just my family. I think kind of where you started is where you end up kind of thing for me. My family and I have traveled around a ton moving, like growing up. Ohio, I was born in Iowa, I went to Ohio, then Toronto, then Arkansas, then Georgia. Like all I had was my family, really. I didn't really make any crazy strong relationships growing up. So football is family for me. And I think it would probably just be my immediate family.
All right. And so we always see the videos of people getting drafted. Who's most likely to make the biggest spectacle? Your mom, your dad, or your brother? Whose name is Fish, by the way, for
Yeah.
those watching. Who's going to make the biggest spectacle? Your mom, dad, or your brother?
Can you define spectacle for me?
Like it's just going to be the over the top celebrating. Maybe there's tears. Maybe there's just
I was gonna say
the
because
most.
there's gonna be a mix of that. My mom's probably gonna cry. My
Okay.
dad's probably gonna cry too, but he'll be excited. My brother will be more excited. My dog's gonna have no idea what's going on and start jumping around. He's a little 2-year-old golden retriever, so he's a ball of fire right now. It'll be a cool rush of emotion, I think, but I don't see anyone going too crazy. I think it's been a lifelong dream of mine, and if we're blessed and lucky enough for that to happen, we're gonna embrace it and be grateful.
And so let's say you do get drafted. Who's the first phone call you're making?
Ooh, outside of my family, well, I'm gonna assume that I've already been talking to my agent, so not my agent.
Yeah, probably talking to your agent already. Yeah.
Probably Quincy. I would
Okay.
say Quincy, and Quincy's probably on that same phone call list too. But just because when I talk about where I started and where I'm at now, and how much more I can possibly do, Quincy's been there every step of the way. Even in times where I'm like he probably shouldn't have included me in things he did. And so I'm extremely grateful for the work and effort that he's put into me, and extremely grateful for what he's doing for me now and in the future.
Yeah, it sounds like he's great. Being with him since sixth grade, so a long time. That consistency is huge. You do get drafted. What are you going to buy with that first NFL check?
Shoot.
Do you have any wish list items? You're like, man, I want to go buy this.
I don't know. I think my first reaction is to say put it away and don't touch it, because that's everyone's always, I'm gonna go buy a car.
Yep.
If I had all the money in the world and it was just chump change, I would probably buy a guitar maybe. I've been
Okay.
playing guitar for 10 years now, almost 11, I think. Have a song on all platforms. Check me out.
Okay.
But my brother is a musician, and so we play together. I'd probably buy him a guitar too if I had that money. And yeah, I think that's something I think that would sound right.
Acoustic or electric? What's your preferred?
Acoustic.
Acoustic? Okay.
Yeah, I grew up playing folk and old country, Peter, Paul, and Mary, Bob Dylan, Merle Haggard, Waylon Jennings.
All right. That's good stuff right there. One last question for you. You're leaving college, but who's one name that we should be looking at that's still in college that maybe will shine next year, that might be coming out in the next year or two? Who's the person that, if I was I'm saying, hey, who's the guy, Max, that I should be watching at Minnesota or New Hampshire, that you're like, this is the guy that just is going to stand out if you watch him?
Okay, so I would go. I'm probably biased just because I'm in the quarterback room, but
Of course.
a special kid named Drake Lindsay, who I've had the pleasure of mentoring this year, who will be competing for a spot next year in Minnesota. Whether it's next year or the year after, I think that he's got no ceiling right now, and I've never seen a kid his age who's a true freshman do the things that he does, and intake the amount of information he does, and is able to spit it back out at you, and in perfect fashion. He's so eager to learn how to be a better leader, how to grow as a leader, and also grow as a quarterback on the field. But I think if you're playing football, at the Big Ten level, at the Power 5 level, you're already pretty good at playing on the field. There's some stuff that you can always grow at, but off the field is really difficult to do. And he's been attached at the hip to me ever since we got there together, because he got there in January as well. it's been a lot of fun playing with him, competing with him, teaching him as a little brother. So I would say Drake Lindsay for sure.
All right, awesome. We'll keep the name. I got it written down. I will look him up. Max, thank you so much for coming on. We appreciate you having this conversation, letting the viewers know a little bit more about you, about your personality and your family. You're a musician. You got a song out there. You like some Skyline chili. You
Yep.
seem very intentional about, planning out your career and your path. And you seem very family and team oriented, which I think is a huge plus. I think something teams are really going to be looking forward to. So thank you much. Good luck at the East Shrine Bowl. I'm looking forward to see where you go in the NFL draft in April. Thank you much for coming on. Everyone, thanks for listening. Hit that like and subscribe. And hopefully we'll have some more of these conversations this year. Until next time.